Okay, folks, it has finally happened, and it is real. It is actually a real thing. I know I said about 1,500 years ago. Actually, I was not alive. In fact, 1,500 years ago, we were in the middle of the fall of the Roman Empire. It was that long ago that I declared that we were going to be doing a podcast, and it just never happened. And frankly, it's still not happening because I'm not officially calling this the start of the podcast. But for the first time officially, we are using this studio with guests, and we are one step further. It's like a man walking on the moon. thevincedao is finally using the podcast studio, and tonight we got a lot to talk about. We got to talk about this thing with the Kansas City Chiefs. Long story short, they're trying to destroy a 12-year-old kid's life for quote-unquote wearing blackface when he was not even wearing blackface. Conor McGregor in some trouble in Ireland after he says people who commit knife crimes and kill people should not be in Ireland. Is that a racist thing to say? We'll give you that. Gen Z, new poll showing that our generation's actually not nearly as in favor of Biden as they were in 2020, and a lot more tonight. So with that said, stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. It's real. It's official. We're actually doing the podcast. Nobody can believe it. Did you believe it? All right, let's do this. And we are live, ladies and gentlemen, in the podcast studio. All right. Now, before we actually start to get in, because this is the first time using this and we haven't really officially set this up yet, the podcast does need a name. So, let us know any names and suggestions you have. With that said, I want to introduce my co-host, Ryan. How you doing, Ryan?
Doing good, Vince. It's great to be here.
Yeah, long story short, if you did not watch the other time we went live, basically we go to school together, and I have basically Tard wrangled him to be my co-host. So that's essentially what's gone on here. Other thing we need, all right, we're still getting used to the studio. There's probably some kinks to work out. But we also need a third chair. So I don't know. What do you think we should do on that front? Because I feel like we need someone who contrasts us, right? Because me and Ryan are pretty similar. So I'm thinking either we need someone who leans a little bit more quote-unquote neocon, I guess, in ideology, or it would be really fun, I think, to have a straight-up liberal as the third chair, but I don't know how long they'd last. And frankly, we'd probably have to pay them to be here, because it would be a pretty miserable experience for them. But
it would not be fun. It would not be fun for them. They wouldn't last, I think, more than a few episodes.
Yeah. Or, we could just have a girl like that. That would also be an idea, hey, two guys and but then no, okay. We'll got to figure it out. We got to figure it out. But we are going to have eventually a third chair. For now, you can imagine it is, I don't know, Monty Teo's girlfriend, Joe Biden's brain. I don't know, but just pretend there's someone in the third chair right now. That is whatever. All right, but with that said, ladies and gentlemen, lots to talk about here. So again, though, I do want to say, recommend us names for the podcast. Actually, Ryan, do you have any ideas for the name for the podcast?
Not currently, but we'll see what comes along as we get this thing going.
We could just call it the thevincedao podcast, but that's just so generic. But then most generic names actually work. Joe Rogan Experience. Yeah. Patrick Bet Davids is literally called the Patrick Bet David podcast. It's the laziest name, but it works. It does work.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, but with that said, folks, be sure to recommend us names. Also, be sure to leave a like on the stream right now. Subscribe if you are finding this and you are new. And if you would like to super chat tonight to give your thoughts, to support the show, whatever you want, feel free to do so. Super chats are open, and we'll read them periodically as we talk, as usual. I think that's Sheeny Beanie. I'm not even seeing her username, but she says, "How about Mickey?" All right, so long story short... I'm not even gonna get it. The podcast is not gonna be called the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, okay? But anyways, with that said, folks, again, be sure to leave a like. And yeah, actually, you know what, Ryan, would you like to introduce yourself? Because, you know, you were on the channel once before. But,
yeah, probably like, what, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
What's up,
Might as
everybody?
well.
I'm Ryan, friend of Vince, met here at UF.
And he's lobbying for Big Tobacco at the moment.
Unofficially lobbying for Big Tobacco right now. But yeah, no, it's
That's
awesome.
what we do at night. We're Big Tobacco lobbyists.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We're, it's awesome to be here. Hopefully the first of many podcasts and a big step towards things in the future.
Yep, definitely, for sure. All right, I'm actually going to zoom in my camera a little, I feel like. Is that a good look, guys? Probably a good angle. All right, with that said, let's actually get into our stories here for tonight. I want to open with this. I mean, I'm sure you've seen this. Not a lot, honestly, buzzing in the political world. It is Thanksgiving. It is the holiday season. But they never find something. They always manage to find something to get completely ridiculously upset over and try to ruin someone's lives over. And the story here is no exception. So if you have not heard, long story short, on Sunday, there was a Kansas City Chiefs game. And because obviously the mascot is the Chiefs, one kid decided to show up in Native American headdress, hence because obviously they are the Chiefs. And we have this article here from Deadspin, and this went all around on Twitter, reading that it says, the NFL needs to speak out against a Kansas City Chiefs fan in blackface and a native headdress. And if you notice, this Kansas City Chiefs fan, quote unquote, that they're not just demanding the Chiefs organization, but the NFL, right? One of America's largest corporations, to single out and condemn, as you can kind of tell by this picture here, is a 12-year-old boy. Okay? So, like, next levels of disgusting here. That's where we're going with this. And you may look at this and think to yourself, well, it does look like blackface, Vince. I mean, what is that? Well, you actually go look, right? You notice on the screen here how they took a picture from that side angle here. When you look at the whole picture, and Deadspin, shame on you. I mean, frankly, Deadspin should be sued, at the very least be forced to retract this article, because you look here, it's not actually blackface, right? The kid has his face, half of it is black, half of it is red. Guess what? He's, cosplaying as a Native American. Partially, those are the Chiefs' colors, right? One of their colors is red, and the black, I guess, probably just some type of, native thing here. But long story short, they are trying to slander this kid and basically ruin his entire life because, and by the way, I don't think this kid did anything wrong. This kid is a hero. This is awesome. And, this is what our parents used to do, right? Dressing up as an Indian, it used to be a normal thing. And then we suddenly decided it was somehow offensive or not allowed to be done. But reading from this article here, Deadspin News writes, it takes a lot to disrespect two groups of people at once. But on Sunday afternoon in Las Vegas, a Kansas City Chiefs fan found a way to hate black people and Native Americans at the same time. Again, folks, this is a 12-year-old boy who was dressed up as a Kansas City Chiefs fan, as the mascot or whatever you want to say. And any amount of really research and just looking around on Twitter, forget the term research, I hate that term, looking around and browsing Twitter would show you that, hey, the kid actually, well, he was not wearing blackface, it was red and black, right? It was a type of paint. Blackface specifically is when you are trying to impersonate a black person, right? If you just painting something black on your face is not blackface, if that's not the intent there, right? But anyways, they say it was as if John Gruden's emails had come to life. If you don't know John Gruden, he said some things in emails one time. The image of a Chiefs fan in blackface wearing a native headdress during a road game leads to so many unanswered questions. Why did the camera person give this fan the attention? Well, maybe because, he's a little kid, right? That's kind of a thing when you're covering sports. You show the little kid who's excited or super into the game, right? It's endearing, whatever. Why did the producer allow that camera angle to be aired at all? Is that fan a teenager or young adult? I mean, long story short, you basically get the idea here. They want the NFL to completely ruin a 12-year-old boy's life because he dressed up in a costume that, you can debate, right? In my opinion, there's absolutely nothing wrong with. And we'll talk about why I believe that and why I'm sure Ryan believes that here in a second. But even if that were not the case, it's his parents who allowed him to do that, right? Again, this is a 12-year-old boy, and they're trying to ruin his entire life. But anyways, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, talking about why the cameraman even allowed that, the producer of CBS, I think it was, airing that game, even allowed that to do. Maybe they wanted to create this agenda. Maybe they wanted to write this narrative.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
I mean, I don't know what what CBS's political views look like, but it's really sad and disgusting that this is what we've gotten to. Completely taking something out of context, not showing even the other side of his face.
For a little kid, too. It's not even,
Like, I can't imagine that little kid had malicious intent.
Or his parents.
Or even his parents.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to the Kansas City Chiefs, which is a Native American team, the Chiefs.
Which is a mascot they've been trying to, cancel, too.
Yeah. They got the Cleveland Indians, now they're the Guardians, but they're trying to get the Chiefs, and they're trying to get the Seminoles, and, I don't know what they're trying to do with this. I don't understand why anyone would do this. It's disgusting that they would come after this kid.
And let me say this, too. I mean, this is, I guess, the more kind of controversial, quote-unquote, part of the conversation. But there is, I mean, unless you're trying to do it to specifically inflame or, insult, which in the vast majority of cases is not true, I don't think there is anything wrong with, quote-unquote, dressing up in a costume from a different culture, right? The first of all, the Kansas City Chiefs mascot, what actually is wrong with saying the mascot is the Chiefs, right? It's kind of a part of an American culture, part of American history, the natives, the Indians, and it's actually totally incoherent because on one side they say you're erasing Native American history, Eurocentric and all that. And then when quote unquote Eurocentric American culture gives them a concession and says, hey, well, we're going to celebrate your culture, i.e. the mascot of a team, right? And it's not particularly like the native mascots in a lot of these sports are portrayed negatively. Like, the Seminoles, for instance, they're tough, right? It's like a fierce thing. Same thing with the Chiefs. They're trying to portray in a positive way as like warriors and as it's a cool mascot, but they say like that's not allowed, which is incoherent. And then they say, okay, you cannot dress up in a costume from a different culture. Well, then how does that make any sense? I mean, what even is cultural appropriation? It's totally incoherent, right?
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I mean, they did it with the Washington Redskins a few years back that are now, I think, the Commanders.
Yeah.
And
Caucasians.
Yeah, Caucasians. But, I mean, you had Native American tribes coming out and saying, we like the name. We see it with honor. They represent it with pride. Right. You saw tribes come out and say that. They wanted a big petition earlier this year to bring the name back.
Really?
And, yeah. Now, they completely rolled it out. They have new owners and they don't want it. But I don't see what's wrong with it as long as you're not doing it with bad intent. If you're not making fun of the Native American tribes or trying to make them look bad, if you're respecting them and honoring them, there's nothing wrong with that, I feel.
Right. I mean, exactly. And to add the level of the incoherence, Ryan, I know you're a Notre Dame fan. Yeah. Let's bring up that example, actually. So you have the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, who, and if people are unfamiliar, it's a college team or, university, very big in, football and all that. And their mascot, I would argue in some ways, arguably maybe is a little bit quote unquote insulting, right? It's a leprechaun. That literally the mascot is a leprechaun, They're the Fighting Irish apparently, and that's what they do. Hold on, is the stream down? Okay, we're good. But here's the thing about that is the argument that would be made is, well, it's different because Native Americans were historically oppressed and this and that, blah, 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 blah. Whereas, that's not true of the Irish. But it's like when you look at, okay, first of all, American history, Irish historically, they dealt with discrimination, all that too. But even you want to look at like the origins of Ireland as a country. Right? Colonialism, the British, right? They wanted to take it over. That's gone back for a very long time. So there's literally no difference other than perhaps the Fighting Irish mascot is actually a little bit worse, quote unquote, in terms of the level of offensiveness or the origins or the history of the group or whatever. Other than, and this is what it really gets down to, right? The Irish one is white, so it's okay. That's really what it's about.
Well, no, exactly. I mean, listen, I'm part Irish. I take zero offense in the Notre Dame mascot. I grew up a Notre Dame fan. I find the mascot awesome.
Yeah.
I take no offense to it.
Right.
Now, maybe you could pull it up sometime. Max Kellerman at ESPN a couple years back hounded the mascot of Notre Dame, saying it was offensive and that it should be removed.
Well, at least one person was consistent about it.
At least
he
was consistent about it. He said he has Irish friends that are offended by it. Now, I mean, I don't think any real Irish person would ever be offended of the Notre Dame mascot. But, it's the double standard.
Right.
You got people complaining about a Native American mascot, Native American, but the Irish have been extremely oppressed also throughout history, with Britain, and even when Irish immigrants came over here to America.
Yeah.
They were not treated very right. Now, not as bad as the Native Americans, but they weren't treated well.
Right.
And yet no one's complaining about that. No one wants the Notre Dame mascot removed, and I don't want it removed, but no one's talking about it.
Right. And, the phrase, my culture is not your costume, that's a big part of culture.
Yeah.
It's the food, it's what you wear, it's your customs, et cetera, et cetera. Like, what does that even mean? My culture is not your costume.
Well, and for people that hound on cultural appropriation, where do you draw I'd like to know where exactly the line is drawn. Because it's like, can I not go to a restaurant that serves anything else but my culture's food?
Yeah.
Like, can I not go to a Mexican restaurant? Can I not go to an Asian restaurant? Because if I eat that food, it's cultural appropriation.
Yeah.
Or is the line just drawn at clothes? Is it drawn at holidays, drawn at practices? What is it drawn at?
Right.
That's what I'd like to know.
I think what it ultimately comes down to, they veil it in a lot of different things. Cultural appropriation, racism, oppression, whatever. Let's be real. It's really just a humiliation ritual greater in the culture that they want to get rid of everything that's good or traditional or that, people enjoy, right? And so obviously that's stuff like getting rid of mascots, canceling movies, getting rid of this, getting rid of that, taking the flag down here, even like the climate change agenda, right? You cannot tell me that what the electric vehicle thing really is about and getting rid of, cool cars and all that, trucks, sports cars, muscle cars. It's a humiliation ritual because they want to degrade you. They want to take away things that are fun, that are enjoyable, that kind of make you just feel good and that historically you've had access to. And they want to just kind of force you to submit to that. And, like I said, it's just one big humiliation ritual. So we got to apologize for this, remove that, until you have a culture in this country that is unrecognizable, that has, is totally devoid of the traditions and the customs and just the everything of the past. And I think that's really what this is about, Yeah,
it's like, to me, it's like guns. Like, this argument's like guns.
That too, right? Guns.
The more they take.
Guns are cool, right? That, I get it. There's other reasons they want to get rid of it, government, tyranny, all that. Like, I know all the generic arguments, but one of the biggest arguments I make about guns is literally that they want to get rid of them because they're cool. Because it's cool to have a gun, right? It's kind of a masculine thing to have a gun. That's why when I'm talking with gun control people, especially considering it's been years, we've made all the same arguments about, safe, gun-free zones and all that and how they don't work. Fundamentally, if you are scared of guns, you are just a expletive, right? That's all it comes down to. But, that's part of why they want to get rid of it. Because, cool things scare them, guns scare them, loud engines scare them, football, a physical kind of masculine sport scares them, and that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I think also a big part of it is liberals are so damn miserable.
Yeah.
That they hate seeing
and they project their misery.
Yeah, they hate seeing people have fun. I go to a football game and, there's people concealed carrying in the stadium and they see people having a good time at this football game with a Native American mascot and they just want to take all that away. I drove in my truck. I had a good time. We tailgated. And they want to take it all away because I'm having a good time. They're so damn miserable.
It's just like those articles. I covered this on the channel before Thanksgiving where they had that article in The Nation just talking about how written by quote-unquote Native Americans saying, well, America shouldn't celebrate Thanksgiving because of the history of colonialism. But like I said, that's not, you're right, that's not what it's about. They just want to project their misery. Thanksgiving is a day that Americans traditionally enjoy. It's about family. It's about being social in a way. I think a lot of these people are antisocial freaks in some regards. And so they kind of just hate everything about the holiday, same thing about Christmas, because it's a day where people are happy. It's a day where people are having fun, and leftists are miserable souls, literally devoid of that. So
absolutely. And I view the whole cultural, cancel culture off of cultural appropriation and other holidays that like Thanksgiving that they want to cancel.
Right.
It's like guns. Like once they get one thing, they're gonna keep going. They're not gonna stop. You know, they come get the mascot. Now what's next? What are they taking after that? But like Columbus Day. Columbus Day wasn't enough. They want Thanksgiving. They want Christmas. They want to take it all away.
Right.
I mean, you know, Columbus. I'm part Italian. Columbus Day was the one holiday Italians had. It was given to them. The holiday was created. Back in like I think 1918 because Italians were kind of discriminated against. They wanted to give them a holiday to make them feel welcomed. Yeah. And they took that away. So is that like discriminating against Italians? But that's okay.
It is. It is anti-Italian discrimination is the
discrimination.
Greatest form of discrimination in America,
like
you know?
Took their only damn holiday.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. All right. Well, I think we basically beat that topic to death. But to summarize here, they're miserable people. They see a kid having fun. That's what it's really about at its core. That's what it's really about. And a lot of these people don't have children and probably don't belong around children anyway. All right. With that said, let's move on here a little bit. 2024 obviously is coming up, which is crazy to think about. We're almost through at least 4 years of Biden, right? Which I don't know how confident I am that it's only going to be 4 years, but assuming it is, I mean, you're almost at the finish line. At the very least, you're at the halfway point. I don't know. But want to talk a little bit about this poll. Last week, we did a video kind of covering the NBC poll that has never shown Trump beating Biden in the general election that now, as of like last week or this month, has started to show that turn. But I want to focus specifically on this statistic since we are, you know, both college kids, young people on the show here. NBC News says a number of public polls show young voters turning on Biden. Okay, and the latest NBC News poll finds Joe Biden trailing. Not even close, right? Because I think in 2020, they say Biden won young voters by 20 points, which is not surprising. That's what you'd expect, right? But now, trailing among young voters ages 18 to 34, with Trump getting 46% of the young voters and Biden getting 42. This is a striking finding, given that Biden won voters ages 18 to 29 by more than 20 points in the 2020 presidential election, according to the National Exit Poll. So, what I will say about this is I don't know how much I trust polls in general, especially some of the polls, you know, you see this far out from an election year. It can be a little bit skewed. I don't know. But so what I always say about polls is that they shouldn't be taken as accurate in terms of the margins, right? If the poll says so-and-so is winning by 1, that doesn't mean they're going to win by 1. It might not even mean they win at all. But I do think what polls can sometimes show, because if they're done the same way over and over again, even if that's flawed, is like a shift in attitude, right? And I do think there is something real to that young voters ages 18 to 34 are, and I talk about this all the time, right? The kind of generic conservative line is like, oh, the young people are so stupid, they're lost and all that. And that's because the stuff you see on screen is the minority, at least in some states, right? The minority of like blue-haired freaks that you see, you know, on campus reform and all that different stuff. And I always try to tell people I'm seeing a shift. I think that young people are not nearly as liberal as people think, and that's not to say they're like devoted conservatives who are, you know, watching Fox News every day and keeping in touch with, you know, Republican politics, but it is to say, and the point I've made for a while is that I think when you look at these sort of Gen Z subcultures, especially like just the way a lot of young men are, you know, I wouldn't even say it's distinctly conservative or political, but it's not liberal, right? Like, you know, the jokes that ordinary guys make to each other all the time. I'm not going to repeat them here, but they would show, you know, if you hear an average conversation between guys our age, it would show that, hey, like, they don't care about quote unquote, at least being woke, quote unquote, because clearly not, right? Clearly you see an expression there. So, Ryan, do you think that there is a shift in our generation? Are you noticing it? I mean, I've brought up polls before that are showing it. The Michigan poll, University of Michigan's another one that was kind of earlier this year. Are you seeing it? I mean, you're a poli-sci major, so you probably are more in touch with it than me.
I don't know. Who was that poll by that you just read?
NBC.
NBC, yeah. I have no idea, like, what their poll rating is, because in poli-sci class we talk a lot about, like, how good a pollster is based on who's in the poll, where did they sample from the country, all this stuff that goes into it, margin of error. But I think, like, generally, I think at least among young men, I think you're seeing kind of a shift towards conservatism.
Yeah,
I think at least from more so than the previous generation before us.
Right.
I really do. I mean, you look at, like you said, the jokes that are made. I mean,
this is the subcultures.
You're on the same campus I am. I mean, like you see everybody.
Right.
But also, you talk to your friends that, they go on social media and they talk about who's popping up on their feeds, and I won't name names because I don't want to be canceled. But, there's many influencers and people out there that are popping up on people's feeds that are kind of getting a hold of young men that are very conservative.
Right. Yeah. What do you think is the way to get young men specifically, which I think is, like you said, what's driving this poll, into the ballot box? Because I think that's the biggest issue, is that among the more right-leaning subcultures in our generation, there's not really a culture. There's a culture of, like, being edgy. There's a culture of just, like, not liking feminists or liberals or political correctness or whatever, but there's not really a culture of voting, right? Like, I think if you went to, I mean, definitely like a Southern fraternity, but I think any fraternity around the country, you'd find most of the guys are like conservative Republican and stuff, and then ask them, when's the last time you voted? They've never voted, right? Definitely not. So, and I think that's because there's kind of a culture where, I guess, being involved in politics, especially for young men, is seen as something that's nerdy or lame, or, you know what I mean? And so I guess the question is, how do we make voting either cool or just, like, do something to, like, get their ballots into the ballot box? You know what I mean?
I mean, I hate to be the pessimist here, but I don't think there is a way to make voting cool. I really don't.
Yeah,
I
that's
really
true.
don't. Like, it's since the beginning of time.
Democracy isn't cool. It's lame. It's like,
it's ugly.
Right. It's historically, like, it was a king and he would, like, ride with his army and they'd fight and stuff. And now it's like, fill out a piece of paper. So
the president's democracy. Not getting on the horse leading his gladiators in the battle. And honestly, like, since the beginning of at least our recorded data, voter turnout amongst young people was not very high. I mean, just not. Young people just don't vote, and that's the way it is. Right. Old people do.
But the problem is that the Democrats kind of have figured out a way to weaponize, you know what I mean? They get all the freaks,
they are.
Yeah.
I mean, they're still not voting in super high numbers.
But it's more than our numbers.
Absolutely.
Way more than our numbers.
It's definitely more. I think, a big thing is, like, I don't know how you do it, just firing up a voter base in a way that actually gets them to the poll. Because, I mean, you go to a Trump rally, there's tons of young people.
Yeah,
there's a lot of young people, but are those people going to vote? I don't know.
Well, I think those ones are. It's more like the
stuff you see, like
random frat guy who just does it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Follows Donald Trump on Instagram.
Right. Exactly.
Which, that guy may not be voting, or probably isn't voting. The average college male that may be conservative and would vote for Donald Trump or vote for whoever the Republican nominee is this time around, but will not because he may not even want to get to the poll.
I think what it's going to take, or at least the best first step, is if all of the little kind of, well, first of all, I'd say, where ballot harvesting, quote unquote, is legal, or you can at least do, like, some type of turnout initiatives or whatever, like, in college towns and stuff, go to fraternities, right? Like, target young men and try to, hey, did you vote, blah, blah, blah. But I think on a greater level, what it's really going to take is the influencers that young men follow or think is cool or whatever, just get more political and get their people to vote, which you do see sometimes, right? Like Theo Vaughn, he's with Tucker Carlson, stuff now.
Tucker at RFK.
Right. Who are some other ones? I don't like. Well, Jake Paul is hanging out with Vivek Ramaswamy, so but you need stuff like that. I think you need stuff like that because that's what the other side. That's a big reason the other side does it, right? They get kind of the. I don't know. Like, I'm sure they're going to try to contact, say, a Taylor Swift before 2024 and be like, oh my gosh, go vote. Like, we need to be doing the same thing. And it's definitely harder because in Hollywood or in entertainment or whatever, it's easy to be it's easy to be a liberal, like you can be Dwayne Johnson and say, oh, go vote for Biden, even though I'm clearly a closet Republican, but I'm a cuck. So I'm big tough guy, but I love taking vaccines and stuff. But that's what it's going to take is the flip side, but it's hard because it's going to take bravery, and some people are going to have to lose money, lose their careers. And it's like, it's a question of, is that worth it to them? And I'm not here to comment on that, but just objectively speaking, that's what it's going to take from just guys that young men look up to, I would say.
Yeah, no, we got to get people that kind of reach out to or get in touch with this generation as far as they speak to them.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of that right now is social media. You see how big Reels and TikTok and everything is, and all the people that are popping up, just exploding on there.
Yeah.
With young men on their feeds, and they'll watch them and they'll follow them and all that stuff. If they can convince them to go vote, that would be huge. I mean, look at all the influencers out there, especially conservative ones. I mean, they are out there. They are out there. I really think that could be big, because that's what the liberals do. They convince their people to go vote. They got all the liberal influencers telling directly, go vote for this person. Go vote for Joe Biden.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think Trump probably plays a big role in that, because I think he's one of the few politicians who breaks out of the culture of being nerdy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
like he's seen as, he's cool, right? He's showing up to UFC. He's funny, you know, and that type of stuff. I don't know how it resonates with suburban women. They always bring that up, but I think with young men, that's you need someone like that. You need someone they find relatable or funny or whatever it is, and that's really none of these candidates besides a Trump, maybe a Vivek in some ways. I mean, I meet young guys who like him too, but besides that, I mean, the rest of this field is just not it. With that said, how do you feel about 2024? Because I've talked about it a lot on this channel. I don't really know how I feel about it. I think it's going to be a hard election. I don't have a feel on it either way, but
I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
I think it's got the potential to go really well. I hope it does. And I'm really interested to see what, as a poli-sci major, I love looking at the polls and looking at the numbers come in and certain counties.
What a nerd.
Yeah. I love seeing it come in. I love election season. It's fun. And I cannot wait till election night, because I do think we're going to win. But I'm not going to straight up say we're going to win now. But I think it's looking like that.
I don't know. It's just like, I've been doing this media thing obviously longer than you.
Yeah.
And I remember, 2018, I was really young. So I think I was just an idiot. And because I was like 15, 16 years old, something like that. And I was like, we're going to win. And then we didn't win. But this is like, okay, that's whatever. And then I learned about how midterm elections actually work. And it's like, okay, that kind of made sense, whatever. But 2020, I thought we were going to win. I did the whole show on it. I went till like 5 a.m. and then things happened, we'll say. And then 2022 to me was shockingly, just disappointing in many ways. But I don't know how optimistic I just really feel, you know what I mean? And people say, oh, but that's because Trump is unelectable or DeSantis. I think no matter who the Republican is, it can be Trump, it can be DeSantis. I mean, Nikki Haley has no shot of winning. It can be Vivek even. I don't see any of these candidates saying like it's a guaranteed easy election. I think Trump has certain strengths electorally. He can turn out the base, which is a big reason we've struggled so much in 2022 in the off-year elections, is the base doesn't turn out. But obviously he is very polarizing, but at the same time, you could argue the way the Democrats have the political machine set up here with the ballots and all that stuff, that doesn't even matter at this point. They know how to get turnout. We'll call it that. So I don't know how I just, if you like my honest thoughts, honestly, if you were to ask me candidly, like, hey, off the record, which I'm on the live now and it's probably not a good idea, but my 51% inclination at least is that I think Biden's going to get reelected. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but the viewers are going to be like, how the heck is that possible? And I don't want to sell anyone, pessimism, right? Because I think it's a winnable election. I think it's a question of, will the Republican Party and the campaigns and stuff be competent enough to do what needs to be done, to go and, harvest in the way the Democrats harvest, get turnout from our bases, right? Small town America, stuff like that, counter the Democrat turnout machine, be on point with messaging, don't screw anything up, And that all remains to be seen. It's a winnable election. I'm just saying, just the vibe I've gotten the past couple of years, I don't think that the party is competent enough to do it, but I don't know.
Well, this should be like the most winnable election on paper, like
yeah.
ever, if you're a Republican.
Oh yeah, and so was 2022.
Yeah. I mean, the economy, inflation, immigration is out of control. The world is on the verge of World War III. The Democrats super unpopular. The own party doesn't even want him. Yet we're sitting here worried about if we could beat this guy. That's insane. We're on the verge of World War III. We got a crisis at the border. Inflation's out of control. And we have the oldest president ever that doesn't even know where he is. He's lighting the White House on fire with his birthday cake.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we're worried about beating this guy. That's the culture of losing that has just taken over the Republican Party these last few cycles. I mean,
you sound just like Vivek. Yeah, true.
Really, but I mean, all we have done is lost, with the exception of 2016.
Yeah,
like with the exception of 2016, it's been.
And 2018 was understandable, but it's like after that, it's been.
2022 was a disaster.
Yeah,
like that was a disaster.
That was
with the exception of Florida.
Yeah,
Florida was great, but you had all the promise in 2021 from Virginia with Glenn Youngkin beating Terry McAuliffe there,
right,
in the upset, and then you couldn't even roll that momentum into what Glenn Youngkin did so well with suburban voters, suburban women. You couldn't even take that momentum and roll it into 2022 in states like Colorado that we're hoping was going to be close. We just got demolished. In New Hampshire, where you had all these suburbanites that you could kind of get tight with. I'm not saying win, but tight.
Yeah.
We couldn't win Georgia. I mean, like, come on. Like, I can't believe, I can't believe this is where we're
at. And John Fetterman got elected as a U.S. Senator.
John Fetterman, at times I watch, I don't even know if he can he's with Biden. He's young Biden. I mean, honestly, he's got, maybe he's our next president. Maybe he's Biden's running mate.
You know what? America deserves that. America deserves that.
We probably do deserve John Fetterman, honestly.
Yeah, for its stupidity.
Oh my gosh. I mean, yeah.
But yeah, don't take that as like me dooming or telling you not to be involved in politics. Keep that footnote in mind. I don't feel good about 2024, assuming that the Republican Party does not get its act together, right? Because he's right. Everything on paper says it should be an easy election. And I could summarize every sort of issue you named there in like two simple statistics. I think it's something about 70-something% of Americans say the country's not headed in a good direction. That is a terrible statistic for any incumbent. Common sense, by the way. It's a common, like, just think about it. That's a terrible one. And on top of that, I think Biden's approval rating is what, like in the 30s or something, 30, some say it's 40. Anything below 50% historically is not seen as a good thing. So it should be a home run election. But when you consider the way the Democrats have built this political machine that we talk about all the time in terms of turnout, and you consider the fact that the Republican Party is just incompetent and wastes money, and, it's not all on Donald Trump, obviously. In fact, a lot of it's not on him, but it's just the sad reality of the situation.
It's just, when is the losing going to stop? That's the question. How
the pain never stops.
The pain never stops. Like, can we have back-to-back cycles? Like, can we
have one cycle?
Can we have one cycle? I mean, 2016. I'm trying to think in recent memory. Like 2016 is the only one in recent memory where it's like, oh yeah, that was fun.
Yeah,
that was fun.
Yeah.
In the House, the Senate,
right,
and in the presidency.
Right.
It's like, 2008's understandable. That was a Republicans should not have.
I really don't think you can compare pre-Trump politics to post-Trump.
Well, no,
they're totally different things. Yeah.
As far as the history of the Republican Party in the past 20 years, 2008, they on paper probably they should not have won. 2012 is a toss-up probably, but leans to the Dems because he had incumbent. And then 2016 should have been the Dems. The Republican Party, well, Trump, really. It was Trump. Because if it was up to the Republican Party, then they probably would have burned that one down too.
Yep.
But every election since 2016 has been an absolute disaster.
Yep.
I mean,
that's just the reason I don't feel great is because it's like, well, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior, and that's just the way things have been. But
we get the same election, the same set of cards. It's like, this is a winnable election, and we're expecting a different result.
Yeah.
And I hope it is, because I hope we can start doing things to start winning. I mean, we really need to. Like,
no, yeah, I mean, and the country needs it when you think about it. Like, I mentally, I've just kind of accepted, okay, like Biden is the president, and part of me in my head kind of just expects he's gonna be like the president until 2028 somehow. I don't know how, but somehow. But when you really think about the danger of Biden's been a terrible president in the first term, but the danger of like everything he said he wanted to do, or the really extreme things conservatives fear, it's not going to happen in the first term of Biden. But I think he wins again, and it's an electoral embarrassment for Republicans. He may have the coalition or the kind of political mandate to really go through with the things we talked about, banning the cars, the guns, all that different stuff, and obviously just quality of life, it's going to get worse,
well, also,
economically.
I mean, the narrow in the House right now is so slim.
Yeah.
Like,
and it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be. We should be up by 15, 20, 30 seats.
I think that's what Democrats got in 2018 was like 40 seats or something. Yeah.
We should have, it should be R plus 25 in the House. But, what is it? R plus 5, 6?
4, I think.
4?
Right?
Yeah, is it 4? I mean, it's unbelievable. And
and we're going to lose one because the mighty George Santos is retiring. That's a story we've got to talk about.
Yeah,
go ahead.
R.I.P. to his political career. But it's
he will be missed.
Yeah.
He will be missed.
But we're not, like, if 2024 doesn't go well, we're going to lose the House. It's too small of an margin of error for to not lose it if it doesn't go well.
No, that's true. And you think about the national environment. Yeah.
In the Senate map, I believe this cycle for 2024 sets up really well for us.
Mm-hmm.
We got Democrat incumbents.
But so did 2022.
It did. Like, we got Democrats in Montana and West Virginia.
Yeah.
Up. We got Democrat seats in Republican strongholds. If we can't win those, at least one of those, can we get back to the Senate? Can we take either Montana or West Virginia?
I'm pretty confident in those ones.
I mean, John Tester's pretty popular in Montana, but Joe Manchin's retiring in West Virginia. We should win that. And you got a Democrat incumbent up for grabs in Ohio too. If
we lose West Virginia, I think it's time to just ask Vladimir Putin for political asylum.
Yeah, honestly, like, I'm trekking to Eastern Europe.
We're going to Russia. We're all learning Russian, boys.
All learning Russian, and next podcast we'll have a big bottle of vodka right in the middle, and it's going to be awesome.
I learned how to say my name in Russian, and then I forgot. I just got Google translated it. All right, enough about 2024. That'll probably be a weekly story because things change, polls move. I want to get more into the electoral thing, okay? Because it's actually fun to talk about. I know mainly we do like cultural stuff on here, but I think the electoral stuff is fun. That said, let me get caught up here on some of our super chats. I know we got quite a few, so let's get into these. Zachary sends a member chat for 8 months saying, "I just got my formal offer of permanent employment for King County Roads. Wish me luck." Well, yes, we are wishing you luck. Best of luck.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Zach, and that's very awesome to hear. I know you've been working at that for quite a while now. So that's awesome. Are you able to carry? Because I know long story short, he was trying to like conceal carry at work, and it was a whole thing. But
really?
Best of luck, Zach. Love to hear that. Dollar for $2. I don't know if I want to read this one. Okay, he says, "Let my man John Gruden cook." Okay, and he's obviously talking about the playbooks and the coaching on the field and calling play,
great offensive play caller.
Yeah, great offensive play caller, right? Quarterback whisperer. Thank you for the $2 dollar for dollar. Rally Gonzalez for $5 says, "Libs at the same time will argue that Indian mascots are disrespectful, but say that Johnny Reb mascots glorify the Confederacy. So which one is it?" 100%. 100%. But yeah, everything is see, they want to just find whatever excuse to take away things that are cool and people enjoy, right? Whether that's the Ole Miss Rebels, or actually, if you look, a lot of Southern mascots have ties to like Confederate stuff, so that they're all gonna get rid of that at some point. Like Virginia Cavaliers. I wonder who that Cavalier is supposed to be, you know? Actually, even like LSU Tigers comes from the Fighting Tigers of
really?
Robert E. Lee's army.
But the Clemson Tigers as well, then?
I don't know about Clemson. Yeah. Because it is a pretty, just generic mascot. But I know specifically that's where LSU comes from.
Did not know that.
But... yeah, but like I said, they just want to get an excuse to do the humiliation ritual and get rid of anything that's cool. So when it benefits them to say, oh, well, a rebel mascot is glorifying the Confederacy, then they'll say that's what it is. But then if it's an Indian mascot, they just turn around and say, well, that's not glorifying the Indians, that's making fun of them. Again, what is it about to get rid of everything that is cool and fun and people just enjoy and that's good about the world because they're miserable people and that's the way it goes. Christopher for $5 says, I don't mind you thinking Biden could get reelected, one crisis after another, but people are sheep and the GOP is stupid. That basically sums it up. Third point I would add, and I bring this up all the time, is the voting system, right? The way turnout works, and it's not just the F word, it's not just the buzzword, it's also the fact that, when you have voting for a month, when you make mail-in balloting so accessible, it turns out more low propensity voters, right? People who don't normally vote, don't normally care about politics. If it's that easy to vote, right, when you lower the bar, you get more, for lack of a better word, stupid people voting, right? And the Democrats are very good at getting their, they just harvest from the demographics they know they have favorability in and they go win. And so what I'm saying is Republicans need to figure out how to do, which is not as easy because most of our low propensity voters live in rural America and stuff, is go do the same thing, I don't know, pay some kid who's not going to college, right, from the small town and say, listen, we'll pay you for a summer. Just go make sure everyone in the town votes. Go to the church, go to the area in the center of town that everyone hangs out. Whatever it is, right? The bonfires. Just do that. Thank you for the $5 though, Christopher. Christopher for another $5 says, also, I'm really starting to think the GOP itself is killing itself to spite Trump and his movement. Thoughts? Thanks for the $5, Christopher. There is real truth to that. Would you agree?
Yeah, the GOP shoots itself in the foot every single cycle.
Yeah.
I feel like they just do everything. I feel like they get in a room and just try to lose. Like, how can we figure out the best way to lose this? There's just no winning.
But I think the point he's making, I think it's true, is there's a lot of and people need to realize this. There are a lot of people in the Republican Party, specifically the Republican establishment, and even deeper than the Republican establishment, the military-industrial complex, like we're going on many layers here, would rather, who generically usually are Republican, but they would rather Biden win again than Republicans win again with Trump as the candidate.
George Bush.
Right. But that's an easy caricature, but there's just a lot of dark figures like that, right? And I think it comes down to the fact that, I think they understand, hey, Biden, yeah, we might disagree on some social issues, but fundamentally, he does our bidding. We're all part of the same sort of uniparty here. And Trump, especially a second-term Trump, I think they fear this, where he kind of got screwed over the first time. It's going to be dark MAGA, Trump unleashed, whatever you want to call it, where I think they view that, even if they're usually Republican, as a greater threat, Trump winning as a greater threat than Biden, right? And so they'd rather Biden win than they'd rather have Trump lose to let Biden win than to just have Trump win, if that makes sense. So thank you for the $5. Christopher, I appreciate it. And Andrew M. for $2 Canadian says, how much of a role did Roe v. Wade play in the losses? Thank you for the $2. I think it's been a good issue at terms of I think part of the reason is that the Republicans don't have any coherent messaging on abortion, like one way or the other. There definitely is truth to the idea that it's one of those sort of wedge issues that gets, again, the low propensity Democrat leaning voters to be energized and enthused and turn out. And I think on the flip side, and let's be honest, what you've seen since Roe got overturned is a lack of enthusiasm from the pro-life side, right? And someone put this very perfectly to me. When you look at the institutional infrastructure of the pro-life movement, the pro-life organizations, all that stuff, they were basically designed as giant projects to just get Roe overturned and also campaign and raise money and continue their sort of drive on this idea of overturning Roe. And the truth you are seeing now is that they never had a plan for what happened when Roe would actually be overturned. They never had a vision. They never knew what they were going to do after that. And now, like, the pro-life movement on the flip side is sort of just like it doesn't know what it's doing.
It's idle. I mean, like, I don't know if those pro-life organizations, I don't know. I wonder if they really ever thought it was ever going to overturn. There was like,
no, they didn't.
I think they were just throwing stuff at a wall and just hoping it would eventually stick. And maybe one day it would come about in a couple lifetimes or something.
Right.
You know,
and not to single anyone out or to attack people who are genuinely doing good work. I think it's all important work. But when you look at most pro-life organizations, they're media organizations. They're organizations designed to get attention, which is not a bad thing because you need to drive discussion. You need to have people doing the debates and all this stuff. But how many prominent pro-life organizations did you really see out there, let's say Ohio Issue 1, actually going around building infrastructure to say, hey, go vote on Ohio Issue 1, actually mobilizing voters and building a political strategy around pro-life? It's not existent, right? And so, like I said, like the point I made earlier, that kind of demonstrates that the current pro-life movement we've had, which I think needs to be like totally redone, just on not even on a messaging level necessarily, but on an organizational level, the way it's built, what it's built to do. Once Roe has been overturned, they never had a plan. Right? They don't have any political strategy, and they use the excuse for not building a political coalition for so long that, hey, we're just going to wait on the Supreme Court to do it. And it's not an election. Okay, but now that that's happened, the pro-life movement has gone silent, and then on the flip side, I think
more mobilized and fired up than ever.
Yeah, because now it's actually the stakes are actually
the history of the movement.
Yeah,
and there's no enthusiasm whatsoever on the pro-life side for, what's the agenda? What do you want to get done? What are you telling your supporters?
Right.
There's nothing.
There's nothing.
Silence.
Nope.
And now the movement's it's not dying because Roe was overturned, but I don't know. There's no plan.
Well, I would argue it is dying because if there's no energy around a movement, if it's not creating buzz or doing stuff for a long enough time, by definition, it just fades into irrelevancy.
Well, there's no movement. And it just that was all I guess they wanted.
Yeah.
They all just wanted to overturn it, like let the states decide.
Right. And I'll say this. I went to March for Life this year. Mm-hmm. And I was not at the past ones, but you see pictures, people who were there told me this. You would think the year after Roe was overturned, that'd be the biggest and most enthusiastic March for Life yet. And instead it was the opposite. People said that's one of the worst turnouts they've had in the past couple years. Right. And I think, and I didn't really think much of it at the time other than, well, that's kind of stupid. Yeah. But now when I think about then and then how that translated into 2022 and what happened there, it makes perfect sense, which is once Roe was overturned, a lot of the pro-life movement just kind of packed it up and went home instead of realizing now's your time to fight. But then again, like I said, that's what it's really about, because Roe being there was always the excuse to not have to do anything. But now that there is no excuse there, you realize that most of the powers that be, or the kind of the organizations of the pro-life movement, never had an intention to do anything. And I'm not here to accuse, call them the movement's always been ran by grifters or whatever. I'm not even here to say that, but they at the very least, in good faith, never had a plan, and at this point don't know what they're doing, right? So anyways, thank you for the $2, Andrew. I appreciate it very much. Again, folks, if you would like to support tonight's show, feel free to do so via the Super Chats. We are about almost an hour in, and I believe we got one more story here to talk about. Yes, we got to talk about the Irish. Not the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, but the Irish man that is Conor McGregor. Ryan, you're more familiar with this story. Would you like to kind of explain what happened with Conor McGregor this weekend?
Yeah, no, I saw that he commented, I believe on Twitter, right? He sent out a tweet about, it was a stabbing.
Yeah.
Involving what I think he said was an immigrant, right?
It was committed by an immigrant, yeah.
It was committed by an immigrant, and he was basically not a little, but very outspoken against immigration and things.
Well, I think the exact phrase he used, if I'm remembering correctly, was he basically said that people who stab people shouldn't be in Ireland.
Yep.
Like, they shouldn't be in our country.
Yep.
Which is a pretty straightforward take that I agree with.
Yeah.
But of course they said, okay, well, he's being xenophobic, he's being racist because he's calling all immigrants. Actually, it really is. It's the they're not sending their best thing all over again, right? You can't people can't seem to comprehend that. All right, let's read here from this article that will explain it. Irish police are reportedly investigating Conor McGregor's social media posts. So the Irish police actually are now looking into him. All right. As part of a wider investigation into the spread of online hate speech around the Dublin riots. Because that's apparently the problem. Keep in mind, okay, according to them, the problem is online hate speech. Remember that as I read the next sentence here. After a stabbing that left 3 children dead and their nursing assistant injured in a primary school, far-right protests broke out on the streets of the Irish capital, with windows smashed, police cars torched, and public transport suspended. Which I obviously don't endorse that. Okay, I don't support political violence in the other direction just because you're angry about something. But again, notice the contrast here. What actually happened? A stabbing by someone, to quote Conor McGregor, who should not have actually been in the country of Ireland in the first place. You should not be bringing people into your country that are going to stab your citizens. That's pretty much common sense. Instead of talking about the fact that some animal stabbed three kids and nursing assistant, instead it's like, no, but the far right is angry about it, and that's the real problem. And the real problem is online hate speech. Not the fact that 3 kids were stabbed. It's the fact that people, in reaction to that, got mad. Maybe some of them said things they shouldn't have said, but that's still not the biggest story here. The biggest story here is, again, 3 kids were stabbed, okay? But anyways, Garda Commissioner Drew Harris described the scenes as disgraceful and linked the unrest to a lunatic hooligan faction driven by a far-right ideology, which is further aggravated by unconfirmed reports that the knifeman was an Algerian immigrant. The 5-year-old girl who was stabbed remains in critical condition at Chai Temple Street, where the blah, blah, blah. But let's take a look at what the issue is with Conor McGregor here. Taking to social media, McGregor, a controversial MMA star from Dublin, called for change in Ireland and claimed that victims had been ruthlessly stabbed by a mentally deranged non-national. He stressed in his post on X, formerly known as Twitter, that he did not condone the riots. Okay, so there you go. He says he doesn't support the violence. It's funny. This is like White Lives Matter. This is the exact same. But he did call for a plan of action and reform, responding to a message from Britain First leader Paul Golding calling for him to organize a freedom march. He wrote, "I do not condone last night's riots. I do not condone any attacks on our first responders in their line of duty. I don't condone looting and damaging of shops, blah, blah, blah." But then he says, "I do understand the frustration." And then he goes on to say, "There will be change in Ireland. Mark my words." I think Conor should run for Irish, is it a prime minister, president? Prime Minister. Okay. The change needed. In last month, innocent children stabbed leaving school. Blah, blah, blah. This is not Ireland's future. If they do not act soon with their plan of action to ensure Ireland's safety, I will. Okay, so you basically get the idea here. But I don't know. Is this like his radicalization? Is this his Caesar moment? Is this the moment where he enters politics? It's like Trump and Obama like making fun of him at the White House Correspondents' Dinner in 2011, and he's staring.
I just want to know when his escalator moment is, and New York City. Like, when's he going to come down the escalator and announce his candidacy? I want to see it. He
would easily, especially a country that small, he would easily get elected in whatever.
A good share of the vote, at least.
They could make him dictator of that country, frankly. Like
Ireland right now is relative. I mean, the Western Europe liberal, but
right.
But
it's Conor McGregor.
Yeah, I know they had a pretty bad immigration problem. This is, it's sputtered out of control. But all of Europe, all Western Europe, Eastern Europe has not had that problem.
I wonder why.
Poland and Turkey have not. Or not Turkey, excuse me, not Turkey.
It must be because their food is not as seasoned, right?
Yeah, Poland and Hungary have done a very good job managing their immigration. Mm-hmm. But Ireland's had a massive problem, and it's kind of odd. Like, you can kind of justify the whole mass immigration from a liberal perspective if you're a liberal with countries like France and Britain, because they were colonial countries that
you punish the colonizers.
You punish the colonizers. You could say, well, all these people from Africa, those are technically our colonies. Those technically are, our people.
Right.
They can come in. Ireland's not a colonial country.
Right.
They weren't ruling over any other parts of the world. They were ruled over.
Right, exactly.
There's no really valid excuse to have, I mean, gosh, I forget what the number is. I won't say it because I don't want to say the wrong number, but it is an insane amount of immigrants in the past year. An insane.
Yeah.
Unbelievable amount.
And
I think it's like 120,000.
Yeah, and clearly they're dealing with social and cultural and political and economic and all of that ramifications of that, and that's common sense, right? And there's especially in any case, right? Because I think people will say, "Oh, but what about the domestic citizens who commit crime?" That's not the point, though. The point is that when you take in whether it's a migrant or a guest worker or an immigrant, whatever it is, okay, you're voluntarily choosing whether this person should be in our country, right? And so the point that is being made, to clarify for people who say, no, you can't say that person shouldn't have been here, that's racist, or whatever it is. The point being made is that you should not be bringing someone into your country who is going to go stab children, But, I don't know.
I don't see what's so wrong about saying that a guy that just went into a school and stabbed 3 children shouldn't have been in the country in the first place.
Right. And on a broader level, I don't see what's so wrong with saying that, frankly, no one has an inherent right to come into any country, right? It's the discretion of that country. It's the discretion of that government. Same way no one has...
Discretion of the people.
Discretion of the people, right? No one has any inherent right to come into your house. Same country's the same exact way. It's not inherently immoral to, frankly, bar anyone from your country, but I think in this case, it boils down to pretty common sense. A person, an individual who is stabbing children, it's totally fair if they came from somewhere else to say, well, we shouldn't have let them in, right?
Yeah, no.
If someone walks into your house, if someone like knocks on your door and they're wearing a ski mask and they're holding a gun, and then you just open the door and let them in and they shoot you and run off, what is the conversation there? They shouldn't have come in. Like, you shouldn't have let them in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, any final thoughts on Conor McGregor here?
I support Conor McGregor's candidacy for whenever the next election in Ireland is for the next prime minister.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, you are starting to see
my endorsement, Conor.
You are starting to see a rise of like right-wingism in Western Europe. So maybe it'll come to Ireland.
Well, they see what's happening in Poland and Hungary, doing a great job taking care of what they need to. They're not having the problems that Western Europe's having.
Right.
I mean, look at Italy. Look at who they elected last year.
Right, Giorgia Meloni.
Well,
here's the thing, though, is I know Ireland, I guess, politically would constitute liberal. But I don't know. Maybe you know more about this than me. How much of that is social and how much of that is economic? Because I understand like British culture, like just how liberal a lot of people are there. But I think when you go and look at a lot of other places, even in Western Europe, they elect quote unquote socialists because it's like, the political spectrum in Europe works differently. The sort of like capitalism thing is not as bound into their politics as American politics. I think if you break down the social beliefs of a lot of even people talk about Eastern Europe, but I would also say probably a lot of different Western Europeans outside of the UK, probably actually pretty socially conservative. But I don't know if that's the case with Ireland. I just can't see Ireland being a liberal country in terms of social like beliefs. But I don't know.
Fighting a war since the beginning.
It seems like a rather right-wing culture, right? Like, I don't.
And you see, like Italy, like I don't know how economically liberal they are. I imagine it's pretty liberal compared to us, but their social values are relatively conservative,
right?
And I mean, especially you break in Eastern Europe, it's super socially conservative. But Western Europe, I don't know about the UK and France, but I'd imagine they're relative.
Outside of the UK and France, I'd have to imagine Ireland. Like
Ireland's at least somewhat.
Right.
Like, they're not full-blown leftist. I'd be interested to see what their abortion policy is.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder what the restriction is.
Yeah. I don't know. Any Irish experts there, you can correct us. Like, what is the actual social culture like in Ireland? Because that's one of my theories in relation to, Western European politics, or just European politics as a whole, obviously outside of the UK and maybe France, is that we associate European countries with being more liberal than us because they have, bigger government, socialist policies or whatever. But I really do think the culture in a lot of those sort of like old school European nation states, you ask them their thoughts on like, I don't know, transgenderism or even gay marriage. I'd have to imagine it's actually probably a lot more right wing than the US, the UK, and Canada are.
Yeah, I'm looking at this right now, actually. Ireland's abortion policy up to 12 weeks.
Which would
be considered pretty.
States.
That's considered pretty conservative bill here. That's a heartbeat bill, exactly.
Right.
That's a national law.
Right.
Pretty liberal country.
What about I think the biggest thing, like look at like transgenderism.
I'd love to see some polls, like some polls.
Yeah, how do Irish feel about transgenderism? I think that's a prime question to ask. What does it say? Let's see, while he's looking, we can look at some super chats here. Got any? I don't think we got any. Okay. Chesscom says Ireland. Connor has always been on the more anti-establishment conservative side, although he doesn't talk about politics that often. Well, he's a UFC fighter. I mean, I think most fighters. There's something about the culture of that, just being in combat, being closest to sort of, I guess, the primal state of man that breeds people to be naturally right wing. I don't think there's a lot of left leaning UFC fighters, and I think the culture of the sport, what they do, it kind of pans that out, like I said.
Pretty liberal. I mean, even you look at the crowds of who's there. Trump and Tucker were there a couple weeks ago, right?
Right.
So in a survey of 5,000 people, according to the Irish Times, a little under half, 46%, accepted that a trans woman is a woman and a trans man is a man. 32% disagreed. The rest decided not to comment.
So 50-50, they said?
46, under half, 46% accepted that a trans woman is a woman.
Okay.
32% disagreed. The rest did not comment.
Oh, well, maybe we're wrong. Maybe Ireland just is a
So they're just restrictive
place.
On abortion. Yeah. They don't really care about trans stuff, maybe.
Well, I think it's that America is actually very extreme on abortion, and people don't really realize that. But anyways, folks, with that said, we basically have wrapped up our main stories for tonight. We'll go to Super Chats here and read normal chat and just hang out for a couple minutes, and then we'll probably call it a night. And I think this was a successful first start to all of this. I think there's things to iron out in terms of the tech and all that. But and obviously hopefully we can find a third chair here.
Yeah.
And not have the spooky, scary ghost. I don't know. So someone's sitting there. But I think it was a good start. And we'll definitely get this going. Actually, one thing I think we forgot to talk about. Thursday night, I'm going to be streaming it. I don't know if we're going to be doing it from the studio. I might just stream it solo for the tech and all that. But Gavin Newsom going to be debating Ron DeSantis on Sean Hannity's show. How do you feel about that?
I'm intrigued. I mean, Ron DeSantis is not going to win the Republican nomination.
Obviously.
So far behind right now. Mm-hmm. But Gavin Newsom, hey, I mean, Tucker said a couple weeks ago, he said that he's kind of worried about it, Gavin Newsom, because come in and steal Biden's nomination. And he thinks he's got a good chance because he's actually young.
He's clearly preparing to do it.
No, he's doing. I mean, why else would you be in China playing basketball with little kids?
Yeah,
he's working on his little
and just policy. The fact that he's like nationally involved. You don't see Gretchen Whitmer doing a national media tour. You don't see
borderline campaigning across the country and visiting foreign countries to make himself look good as far as foreign policy goes.
Right,
he's preparing for this. Whether it comes or not, I don't know. But I think I'm not going to say he's going to run, but if he does, he's got a good chance to beat Biden, and he could be Trump's opponent, which I think would be a harder opponent than Joe Biden.
I agree with that.
That would make it a less winnable election than it is right now.
Yeah,
because he's actually competent. Like not in his politics, but in his brain.
I think what they're doing is he's probably just. I don't lean towards thinking that Newsom is going to try to primary Biden, because I think he's been too supportive of Biden, and usually when you're about to set up to do that, you kind of rift a little bit. He's been very clear, like, no, I love Biden, all this stuff. I think what he's more so doing is they probably haven't made a final decision on whether or not they're going to make the fossil Biden actually like do it, right? So I think he's kind of just in the reserves, right? He's second string. He's waiting. Yeah. He's warming up on the sideline, I think that's kind of what's going on here. As for the debate itself, I mean, here's my thing about it. And to be clear, okay, you may think, oh, well, you support Trump in the primary, so I'm sure you're just rooting against DeSantis, right? Honestly, no. I mean, I think obviously, like, the primary is not even competitive at this point. I don't really care about that. I think it's an important discussion to have on a national level. Just, hey, like, conservative states are doing better than liberal states. Like, the conservative side is better than the liberal side. Here's the most conservative governor, the most liberal governor. I am rooting for Ron DeSantis. I hope he gets it done and figures it out. I actually think it's a kind of culturally important moment for us to dominate. My only thing is this, is that, DeSantis should have all of the facts on his side, all of the numbers, all of the stats. I mean, you look at, it's pretty simple, right? People are voting with their feet. People are leaving California. They're coming to Florida. Florida is not the most affordable state for some of those reasons, but it's still much better than California, right? It should be a simple debate, but it will come down to that one kind of ace card Newsom has, which arguably shouldn't matter in a truly academic debate, but it's not an academic debate, right? It's a political debate, which is the charisma, right? And Newsom, it's like, hey, here's a better looking guy. He's maybe a slightly better talker or whatever. And so I just hope it should be an easy thing for Ron DeSantis. It's on Hannity of all places, on Fox News. Like, it shouldn't be that hard. But I just have that fear that, awkward Ron kind of screws it up, right?
I didn't even realize how awkward he was until he started running for president. Like, I never noticed it when he was governor. Maybe it's because he didn't have, like, Trump coming at him.
Well, he didn't have to talk as much.
No, he didn't. He just let the record speak for itself, and he showed up in his raincoat when a hurricane came.
Yeah.
Got on the news.
Yeah.
And he was a good governor. But, I think Newsom's got more charisma. Newsom's a very seasoned politician. He's a really good speaker. And, you can argue, looks play a factor too, is, height. Are they going to be in person, I assume? Going to be an in-person debate?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, like, I remember political science numbers of how much height plays into a factor of who people think they won. Like, it's
really
crazy. Yeah,
Well, you're right about that, because that is the other thing. It's a Kennedy effect. Like, Newsom's a better looking guy, and he looks slick, and Ron, he's Ron, right? So
Newsom looks like Patrick Bateman. I mean, what I mean?
Right.
And Ron DeSantis is, Ron DeSantis,
right?
he's a short guy.
Yeah,
he is a short guy, and I think Newsom's a tall guy.
Oh well,
and Ron's gonna have to break out those big boots, man.
Ron, wear 10-inch heels for all I care. Okay,
no one's gonna see it behind the podium if they have one.
No, but and I know people are gonna kind of respond to this by saying, well, Vince, what does that matter? Why are you even playing into this stuff? Like, this is not logical. This stuff shouldn't matter. And it's like, that's true. I'm not saying it necessarily matters to me. Like, I don't pay attention to the optics crap nearly as much as, like, in my deep down brain, like, I don't use it to discern who's right and who's wrong in a situation. But I just understand that this is not an academic debate that's happening at, like, Harvard or something, where they're talking, or a think tank or a policy center with their little, like, closed forum or whatever. This is a public thing. They're both basically running campaigns in different ways, but they're running campaigns. And unfortunately, it's a sad reality of a political system where you have everyone vote and everyone is eligible to vote, right? That a lot of people make their political decisions on stupid, irrational stuff, and this is kind of a flaw of, I guess, democracy itself in many ways. It's like they talk about the JFK thing and how he basically got elected because he was handsome and he looked better on TV. This is how politics go, right?
Harding, when back in, I remember in Poli Sci, we talked about the Harding effect when women started voting. Warren Harding was the more handsome candidate. They had women for Harding, and he won. He wasn't even a good candidate, but he was a handsome guy, way more handsome than who he was running.
That's like there's one Family Guy sketch.
Yeah.
Warren G. Harding is way the cutest.
Yeah. So and I don't know how his presidency went, but I don't even think he got a second term. I don't know, but
he died in office. But
did
he was Coolidge was his successor. Like, he was a conservative.
He's the one that died like short after the inauguration, wasn't he? Or is that different?
No. He died in like 1923, like 3 years after. But maybe there's an angle there, right? Women nowadays in America are more liberal leaning, obviously, but In 1920, they got a conservative Republican elected after Woodrow Wilson. So
because he was maybe a handsome dude apparently.
We need to just find the most handsome guy who's right wing and just run him.
Yeah, I don't know who that'd be.
I don't know.
We need somebody else to decide that.
Yeah, we need. Yeah, but hey man, you know what? Maybe that's how you win the female vote. I know people are being insulted by that, but there's a lot a lot of truth. There's a lot of
the inner workings of like what's electable is, with the whole poli-sci nerd stuff. It's like it's kind of crazy because it's like you see the taller candidate in a presidential race has won like 18 out of the last 20 times.
Yeah,
it's insane.
And it shouldn't work that way. But
no, it shouldn't. That's
the way it goes.
When they watch it on TV and they see the two people stand next to each other, it's going to seem like the taller person is winning because they're more dominant.
Yeah.
It is. Even facial structures. It's insane. It's crazy.
Yep, totally. All right. With that said, folks, let's see. We got a couple super chats and members chats and stuff here. Burgundy Blue sends a member chat saying, "Hey Vince, long time no see. Great stream. Yeah, good to see you, Burgundy Blue. Also, I posted a new video about Russia. Could you please react?" I mean, we can't react here because I don't have the setup to even play anything on stream. But remind me on a stream where we're in the normal studio and I could do that. Thanks for the member chat, Burgundy Blue. Omar Zapata sends a member chat for 7 months who says, "I thought you'd call the podcast The After Party." Well, that was my original idea. But it needs to fit. You know what I mean? Like I feel like The After Party would work for an after party, if we did a stream, if we do like a bonus stream, or how Fresh and Fit, they do like the after hours where they like bring in all the girls or whatever on the stream. Like I don't know, but I feel like the after party needs to actually be in a form of an after party, right? I don't know. The name is still up for grabs. I truly don't know. But yeah, last call for super chats. We'll end the stream here at about maybe like 10:50, 10:55 or so. I didn't even realize I was on the wrong camera. This is why we need a producer. We need someone to just do the switching for me, because I'm trying to talk and then do the switching cameras at the same time is not very easy. But anyways, let's take a look in the meantime at our regular chat. Dollar for Dollar says, "Didn't DeSantis challenge Trump to a one-on-one debate also? He's turning into a debate me, bro. What a DNG." Hey,
he's just trying to have a reasonable discussion.
You just have a reasonable discussion. We're trying to have a reasonable discussion. We got to bring Cenk Uygur on the pod. Cenk, I know you don't know who I am, okay? And I can't apparently even fix my light on the side to make it not glare. But this is a highly professional podcast, and we need to come on and have a reasonable discussion. All right? We're here to have a reasonable discussion.
I want the reasonable discussion. He needs to be in the third chair.
We should make Cenk the third chair.
Yes.
I would cut off my left pinky to make Cenk Uygur the third chair of this podcast.
Cenk, I'd love to have him. I really would.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if he would fit in the... No, unironically, it is a little tight, but...
I mean, he eats up all that denying Armenian genocide garbage, so...
Cenk, if you lose a little weight, you can be the third chair of our podcast, okay? But you do need to fit in the little thing there, which will be a bit of a challenge. But I think you need to come on. We'll have a reasonable discussion, okay? I won't yell at you to get the F off the stage. You may yell at me. You may have Anna come in and yell at me, although Anna's become much more tolerable since that. But
yeah,
this is
Roger Stone won't be here.
No, yeah, Roger Stone won't. You're a sick guy, Roger Stone. You're a sick man. This is not your show, Alex. It is certainly not your show, Roger. So I swear, I have to. I wonder how much of that video I have memorized. I wonder if I played that video from 2016. For you kids who are too young, it's when Alex Jones crashed the Cenk Uygur set at the RNC. I really do wonder how much of it I would memorize by heart, like a song, by a song.
We need a soundboard.
We're against Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
We talk about that all the time.
No, you don't.
What do you think? The lizard people are in charge?
Yeah, dude. We need a
Cenk Uygur soundboard.
Yeah, so just anytime we talk about something, just middle
reasonable discussion.
In the middle of having a reasonable discussion, we can just put we're against Saudi Arabia. Just the build.
We got it.
Yes.
Chat. We need to get a soundboard.
Soundboard.
I'm gonna look up right now how much is a soundboard for a podcast.
Oh man,
soundboard.
Do we even get the rights to play that sound?
It'll be fine. It's a soundbite on YouTube. It's not an issue. If it's like music with the record labels and all that stuff, it's much stricter. Let me see soundboard.
Oh my god,
$87. That's not bad. I don't know. We gotta, or maybe we can have a digital soundboard, but I don't know. We're gonna look. I've been against getting a soundboard for a long time for the regular stream because I feel like it'd be corny. But I feel like on this podcast it'd be perfect, especially if it's not the generic corny sounds. Like if we imagine the soundboard where it's just Cenk Uygur, it's just like different Cenk Uygur.
We could just add our own sounds. Like I mean, there are so many good Cenk Uygur meltdowns. Like the Iowa caucus back in like what was it 2019 or 2020? The Iowa caucus, that was a meltdown.
Oh yeah,
with Pete Buttigieg steal or what was it? Yeah, Pete Buttigieg winning at the last minute with all the dark crap coming in. Oh my god, that was so good. And oh man, there's so many Cenk Uygur sound bites you could play.
What if we called this podcast A Reasonable Discussion?
That would be good.
Like the inside joke.
Yes. And then we can trademark it every time.
In the intro, it's like, "Welcome everyone." You press a button to Reasonable Discussion.
Oh.
All right, Chad. I think we have some ideas, but last couple super chats here. Sheeny Beanie for 2 says, "Call it Mickey's Minions." No, we've decided. It's
no Mickey.
No Mickey. Thank you for the 2. And Sheeny Beanie for 2 says Mickey will be your third co-host. You don't trust the plan. We're gonna get Cenk Uygur to be the third co-host.
Cenk Uygur will be here.
Yeah. All right, but that said, folks, we're gonna call it a night here. Like I said, we'll probably be live Thursday for the Gavin Newsom Ron DeSantis debate, and then I don't know from there. I mean, we got to figure out an actual like schedule and stuff for how we're gonna do this. But I just wanted to kind of do one show using the studio, so that way at least the like $2,000 I spent on it is for something. So yeah, podcast coming soon. Got to figure out a name. Got to figure out a third chair. Got to get Cenk Uygur on. But yes. I think this was a good start. So that said, folks, everyone have a good night. Ryan, any last words?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This is a great start. Look forward to many more.
We're trying to have a reasonable discussion. Remember, have a reasonable discussion. Alpha moves only. God bless. Leave a like and peace.